blah, 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 blah.
Welcome to the Our Forever Smiles podcast, a podcast created to support mothers of children who were born with clefts and those who love them. I'm your host, Laura Arroyo, and I'm also a mother of a daughter who was born with a surprise cleft palate. I know the challenges you face every day. Whether you have just learned the difficult news of your baby's cleft lip or palate, you're in the midst of pre-op or post-op, or you're an OG cleft mom, this podcast is for you. In a weekly conversation, we will talk about everything from feeding and speech therapy to surgery and school. We'll share tips from guest experts and advocates and even share a little joy in the process. You can listen to Our Forever Smiles wherever you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned. Hello, and welcome back to the Our Forever Smiles Cleft Mom Diaries and Support podcast. I am Laura Arroyo. Thank you to all of our subscribers, new and old. I really appreciate all of the support that we have received from this wonderful community. You can listen to us via Apple, Spotify, and everywhere that podcasts are available. So don't forget to subscribe. And if you have not yet, leave a review for us and just stay tuned for more. I always like to leave this note at the start of every podcast that we have is that we are not medical doctors and we do not intend for you to use the information that we share here as medical advice. We are parents and advocates who love our children and we are sharing our own personal experiences. So this is conversation number 2 that I am having today. So I'm feeling really excited to introduce our next guest and just overwhelmed that so many people are, joining the podcast to want to share their stories. I know that we all bring unique perspectives. And so I've just been feeling really grateful that I have other voices that want to be heard and other stories to share. I feel like when my daughter first received her diagnosis, I didn't really know that there was such a wonderful community that was surrounding us. And I'm just so grateful to have other people that share in this experience. So today we do have a guest, and I have learned a little bit about her this week. I know that she is a mom to twins, which, oh my God, we're going to learn about how she does that, which she's already mentioned to me. Like, I stay up all night, so I already know how it is. I stay up all night with one, so I already know. I can't imagine two. But today we have Haley Morris, and so welcome, Haley.
Yeah, I'm Haley. I'm from Alabama, and I'm a mom of twins, and I'm so excited to have been given this opportunity and share Hendrix's story.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for meeting with me today. So I guess we can just go ahead and start from the beginning. You're a mother of twin boys. So just share with me about your personal journey. When did you find out that you were pregnant with twins?
I found out when I was 4 weeks, and it was pretty exciting because we had been trying for 3.5 years with no luck. And then when I did find out I was pregnant, it was like the best thing ever, and it was hard to believe because it felt pretty impossible. And everyone jinxed me and said, you're going to end up finding out that you're pregnant with twins. And I was like, no, because twins run on both sides of our family. And it did turn out to be twins.
That's so interesting because whenever I was pregnant too, I knew that I only wanted one child. And so, or at least I knew I wanted to only be pregnant one time. And so my mom was telling me like, oh, you're probably going to end up having twins. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like that would be like the dream, right? But then once I got pregnant and went through the whole thing and I had my baby, I'm like, oh my God, God bless you. I was thanking God that I could, that I didn't have two because I felt like I could barely handle one. But obviously our journeys have been really different because we have, children that are cleft affected. So
yeah.
Haley has twin boys. One of her boys is cleft affected and one is not. And so I'm interested in learning a little bit more about her journey with that. Now, her baby boy Hendrix is the cleft affected baby that she has. Is he both cleft palate affected and lip affected?
Yes. We found out that the cleft lip, he got genetic from his dad. I wasn't expecting to have a baby with cleft lip. Like, I knew that it was a possibility, but I didn't think that when I found out I was pregnant that I was going to find out later on that one of them actually did have cleft lip, and then he also had palate. So that was a very first experience for all of us.
Oh, wow. And so you're saying that your husband was he cleft lip and palate affected as well?
He just had cleft lip, and his surgery was 26 years ago, so after Hendrix had his, everyone's like, oh my God, it's so crazy how much has changed and how good it looks.
Oh, wow.
It really
Wow.
is.
So you weren't like nervous at all when you were trying to get pregnant that your baby was going to have a cleft lip or a palate at all? Like, did it just like wasn't something that crossed your mind, or it was like, I guess, what were you thinking in terms of like knowing that this could potentially be passed on to your children?
I didn't know much about his cleft lip. I didn't really know that he had one until later on. Like, I knew when I got with him that he had one, but it wasn't super noticeable. Like, most people that know him or before they knew him would say, you can't really tell that you have cleft lip. Some people said that they thought that he just got in a fight when he was younger. And so I didn't really put it in perspective that I might in the future have a baby that was cleft affected. And then when I found out when I was pregnant, I was super scared because that's something that I've never experienced before. So
yeah, I can imagine that. And so when did you actually find out? Did you find out you were having twins and no, because you can find out like the gender and like if you're having twins before, right? That's like the 12-week scan, I feel like. And then the anatomy scan is usually when they can detect something like a cleft lip. Is that when you found out about his cleft lip?
I believe I was 18 weeks when I found out. So I went and got my ultrasound at 5 weeks because the doctor that I see, I had told him everything that we went through because we had 2 previous losses before the twins. And so when I did find out I was pregnant, he made sure to like keep me in. I went just about every week. I went pretty often, and he kept tabs on me throughout the whole pregnancy.
Yeah.
And so at 5 weeks, I found out that it was twins. And then at 7 weeks, I first heard their heartbeat, and that was pretty great because I was terrified though. I was terrified until I heard them. And then, yeah, I think it was my 18-week scan or my 20-week. It was one of those that she was like, does cleft lip run in the family, or do you know someone with it? And I was like, yeah, his dad. And she was like, that's all I can say. And I was kind of scared, but I was kind of expecting it after she said that. And then when I got pulled into the doctor's office in his room, he told me that the baby had cleft lip and palate.
Oh, wow. Wow. And so from that, were you by yourself during that conversation, or did you have people with you?
Luckily, throughout my whole pregnancy and since they've been born, my mom has been pretty good about going with me. And my mother-in-law, she'll take us to Birmingham for our appointments with Hendrix, like for his checkups and stuff. But my mom was with me that time as well. And then I got sent to Birmingham for further testing. And it was kind of crazy because as I got further along, I think I was 29 weeks because I went into preterm labor. And a bunch of nurses and doctors came in and did an ultrasound to see if he was cleft lip and palate affected and how bad it was. And she was like, he's definitely cleft lip affected, but you don't have to worry about cleft palate. So I just shrugged it off. And then when he was born, he did indeed have cleft palate too.
Oh, wow. Do you have any idea like why she said that? Or because from what I've always known, it's really hard to tell if the baby is going to be cleft palate affected. They don't really know until they're born.
I did think it was crazy because my ultrasound tech at my OBGYN, she saw the cleft lip and palate, and then when I got sent to Birmingham for further testing, she said that I didn't have to worry about him having cleft palate. And I mean, I was kind of relieved because I've never I mean, they were my first babies, and with one of them being fine and then the other
Mm-hmm.
having a medical condition, I was kind of scared of how that was going to go. And I was like, well, that's one less thing that we have to worry about, like one less surgery, one less dealing with him in pain.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and then when he was born with it, I mean, it was kind of scary because the whole learning process.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess how did your mom react to the news, like, while you're experiencing them, like sharing that information with you after having your ultrasound? Well, I guess what was like the general feeling between you all that day?
Well, I had a lot of people tell me that they didn't believe that it was true and that they knew that God could like fix it, because I do have someone on my Facebook, and they're in the area, and her baby also was cleft lip affected, and then after he was born, it was like he didn't have to have surgery because it was already together and closed. And so they were like, we're going to pray that that's your situation so you don't have to go through it, and he doesn't either. And I mean, I told them that either way I'll be fine, because it's a miracle that I was even pregnant. And my mom was very supportive throughout the whole process, though. Like, she kept telling me everything was going to be okay. But I think my biggest fear was taking care of two babies at once and then learning the whole process with Hendrix and figuring out how I'm going to give them both the same amount of love and attention when one of them has a medical condition.
Yeah. That's so interesting that you said that about, like, people insinuating that some healing is going to happen in the womb. I'm not like opposed to that. Like, I'm not like a super religious person or anything, but I do, have my own personal beliefs. But on another episode, I did speak with someone about this. Her husband also, when they found out, he kind of felt like, well, God will heal. And it was actually pretty frustrating for her because she kind of felt like, yes, right? Like, I have this belief and I do have a lot of faith. However, I really do want to be prepared. I don't want to just be like oblivious or just like ignorant to the belief that my child is going to be born with a cleft lip or a cleft palate. And so I want to have all the resources and support that I have now, like that I need to like be prepared for something like this, right? Because you have, you can have faith, but you also need to like do the work to like, make sure that your child is doing well. So I appreciate like both sides of that, and I understand both sides of that as well. So you mentioned like raising, you have a child that is like not cleft affected. And what do you think has been like the biggest challenge that you faced in raising like both of them? I know they're still pretty young, but I guess like what's been like the differences between them?
Well, when they were first born, Riker was pretty laid back and he was pretty calm about everything, but after Hendrix had his surgery, it wasn't super hard because you could just set Riker down and put him in front of the TV and he was fine, which I don't just leave him there to watch TV, but when I was feeding Hendrix or trying to be there for him and support him after his surgery and comfort him, it was pretty easy. But now he's gotten to where he wants more attention and he wants to be held, so he'll crawl up to you and put his arms on your legs and want to be held. And it's difficult sometimes when they're both crying because I only have two arms and I can do it, but it's just hard sometimes because they like to fight too. But I think the hardest part really was just seeing Hendrix go through all of it, and then now they both want attention. And Hendrix requires more since being through all this. And Riker wants the same amount of attention, so it's made it kind of difficult.
Yeah. I guess like providing that like balance, right now, they don't really know or understand the journey, but I guess like as they get older, so Hendrix has already had his first surgery, right?
Yeah, he had that May 8th, and then he just had his palate surgery on November 1st.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah, that's good. So he's already like had, 2 surgeries. Are there plans to have additional surgeries?
Yes, we just went back for post-op December 7th, which I think that was yesterday. I have my days mixed up. But they told us that he wouldn't have another surgery for 6 years. He'll be in 2nd grade, and that's where they'll be. I think they take a piece of bone from his hip and put it where his gums are, the split from his cleft lip.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
that's pretty scary.
Yeah, I can imagine. And hopefully, as technology has advanced, like, they, as your husband was saying, like, things were way, way different 26 years ago. You think 6 years ahead. There may be some procedures that could be like less invasive, or just new technology to help with like healing and that type of thing. I know it was like really difficult to watch my daughter go through her palate repair. She was in like a lot of pain, and it was just really, really difficult just like watching her have to go through something like that. So right now, like I know that they're like still really, really young, and Hendrix doesn't necessarily know, what's happening to him, right? Like he just knows that he's in pain, and Riker doesn't know really anything that's going on with his twin, right? Like, I guess, like, how do you plan on, like, I don't know, not necessarily like educating Riker on it, but just like, how do you plan on like incorporating him in Hendrix's journey, if at all? Like, what are your thoughts on that when they get to that age where they actually do know more information?
I have a feeling that Riker, like, will explain the process that he's been through, and we have pictures throughout the whole journey. When he first got his cleft lip surgery, Riker was allowed to be up there, and my mother-in-law and my mom stayed in a hotel, and after Hendrix's surgery, we had to stay there for a night. So, like, they would come up there after his surgery and let Riker see him, and Riker, like, he didn't even really look like he's seen anything different. It was pretty great. I have a picture of them sitting side by side. Aww. And Riker just kept trying to grab his brother and talk to him, and it was really sweet. So I don't think that he'll really notice a difference, because he was the same way after his palate repair. He wasn't allowed in the room at the time because of the hospital rules, because I think it's like October through March. They don't let you come because of like the flu and RSV and all that is super bad. But after we got out of the hospital, it was just like things were the same, like nothing ever happened. And I just love their bond, and I think that, like, if, some people make fun of kids like that. I've had that happen a couple of times with Hendrix already, and I think if that were to happen, that Riker would definitely stand up for Hendrix. I think he definitely would.
Yes, I love that. Yes. We all need someone like that. Like,
yes.
We all should have a twin. Someone that's like, having the same experience, right? Like, I feel like siblings in general are really like fun and just like really cool to have around, but I feel like a twin like is a different experience. I don't know, you just feel connected in a different way.
Yeah,
I would imagine anyway, or that's what's been shared to me. So
they share the same womb, and they were born 2 minutes apart, but they were born the same day. Like, I have a picture of them the exact same day that they were born. After they, like, we laid them next to each other, and they were just holding hands, and it was the sweetest thing ever.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so thinking back, like, to the ultrasound, like when you saw your ultrasound, could you see his cleft lip on the ultrasound?
Every time that we went in there, even when I went to get, I think it's a 4D or a 3D, especially, it was right after she found out that he had cleft lip and palate, and we would go in there, and she would try to, like, show me where it was, but he would just turn away. And they told me, they were like, he already seems like he's super shy about it, and that kind of made me feel bad, because I was like, he's just unique. There's nothing wrong with him, and we're going to make him see that when he's born.
Yeah. It's really hard. I feel like it's really hard, like, dealing with, like, commentary, like, from other people. And I feel like people don't know what to say. Like, I don't think that people have, like, ill intent, you know what I mean? But they just, like, they just don't know what to say, I guess. Like they feel like they need to say things to like, I don't know if they need to say words because they don't know what to say. So I don't know. But I have heard people encounter that as well. One of the things that I notice a lot, like online and in support groups, is that people, new moms that are just finding out or just discovering that their child might be born with a cleft lip or palate, they want to see like, oh, what did your ultrasound look like? And like, how does your baby look now? And I think the fear is like just, just that like cosmetically, how is my baby going to look? And then also, of course, us as mothers, we don't want our children to feel different or look different or be judged, or we're just like really, really like, that's something that's really hard for us to deal with. Just thinking about the future, like thinking about what our child might experience. And so just based on like the ultrasound or what you were able to see compared to when he was born, is this what you were expecting? And what was that first moment when you saw him when he was first born?
So I did see one ultrasound, but you could really hardly tell because of the way that he had moved, and I wasn't sure what to expect, and I was terrified out of my mind. Mostly because I felt like it was going to be difficult, and then I had looked up, like, I researched a lot. I wanted to learn everything that I possibly could, so I was doing a bunch of research, and then I was going to get some Dr. Brown bottles before he was born, the special ones, and I decided not to because everyone told me that the hospital had some, and he did not like the ones at the hospital. He would fall asleep while eating, and they were talking about putting a feeding tube in him. And she was like, well, at this hospital, if we put a feeding tube in, he's not going to get to go home with you. And so I was really scared. And then after he was born, and like all my worries went away because he was just so perfect regardless of his cleft lip and palate. And then my doctor helped a lot too, because as I was laying there, because I had to get a C-section, and he pulled him out and he showed me him. He was like, he's got cleft lip and palate, but he's not bad. He's not bad at all. And I was just like, yep, definitely the best doctor.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. Everyone always says that, like, from what I've seen, it's like, yes, like you can look at the ultrasound and try to like compare what your child is going to look like. But literally when you see them, like all of your worries are going to go away, and you just literally go into like action mode. Like you're trying to figure out like, how do I make them the most comfortable? How do I make them the most healthy? Like what bottles or what feeding mechanism are they going to use? And how do I help them avoid or alleviate like gas? Like you're thinking about all these things, and you think that, I guess the things that you were worried about before you had them kind of just like go away as soon as you see them, or they're actually in your arms and you have to care for them. So it's a really, really special moment. What is something that you wish that people knew about Hendrix or other children that have cleft lip or palate?
I honestly wish that, I have two things. I wish that people knew Hendrix was like, smoking and drinking can cause that. And I was like, well, I didn't do that in my pregnancy. This was genetic. This was hereditary. But I wish people were more educated so they would know more about it, instead of like the first thing that comes to their mind when they see a baby that's cleft lip affected, and they just say it and go with it before they know you or about anything that you've been through in your situation. That's probably the hardest part, is everyone's comments when they've seen him. Some people were not very nice.
Yeah. I got the same thing too, but not, I mean, I'm pretty sure people like thought, like, oh, what did you do like to cause this? And my mom was the only one who asked, and she didn't ask me. She asked my fiance. She said, what do you think, could have caused this? And she says, I've heard, or I guess she started Googling. And, of course, it's like, drugs, like lack of, or smoking or drinking alcohol. And even sometimes it's like lack of vitamins and stuff, which is still like up for debate, the whole like folic acid conversation in terms of like vitamins or things that could like be potential causes. Or, they say that people that have that have a cleft affected child, that if you plan to get pregnant again, that you should like start taking folic acid like months ahead of time to try to, I guess, prevent it. But like, just to add on what you said, like I wish people knew like that this could just happen, and it could happen to anyone. It could be hereditary, but it also could just, be something that just happened, and it's not necessarily the mother's fault for this like medical condition that their child has. So yeah, that's a really difficult thing to like have to go through. Not only are you trying to like be the best advocate for your child, but also having to answer to people that make these assumptions. So yeah. Okay, so now we're actually going to move on to the question of the week. We have a Cleft Mom question of the week. So what I'm going to read is, and Haley's going to help us answer this one. It says, my husband and I recently found out that our baby will be born with a unilateral cleft lip and palate. We are still processing all of the emotions, and personally, I'm struggling with a ton of fear, guilt, and grief. I have so many questions, but for now, I'm wondering how, when, and if we should tell our families and friends. Any advice?
That's a hard question, because for me, it was easy to tell my family because it was something that we had already expected with the dad already having cleft lip. So it was kind of a genetic thing. And so that's a really hard question. In my opinion, I mean, I could be wrong, but in my opinion, it's better to answer the questions now, because like for me, when Hendrix was born, I was already super overwhelmed with the learning process of how I was going to feed him, and if he was even going to be able to get out of the hospital because of his eating situation. So I feel like the sooner the better. Like, I just feel like it will be easier than when I don't know the gender, but when they're born, because, she'll already be overwhelmed trying to learn. So.
Yeah, that's true. In my experience, because I didn't know, so my daughter was born with a surprise. My daughter's not lip affected. She's palate affected only. And so I didn't know until she was born. And so, of course, everyone is like, oh, congratulations, congratulations. And people were reaching out to like check on me and stuff. And I feel like I didn't have the information I needed to share right away. And so I told my like immediate family, the people that came to see me, I told them about it, because my daughter was also like, because she's palate affected, while feeding, she was like, milk was coming out of her nose. So of course that was a little, people are going to ask questions about that. So I told them, anyone that came, which was my immediate family. And then I waited to share the information with my like friends, my extended family, only because I wanted to have like all the information first, and I wanted to share all the information. I didn't know if it was like associated with something else, like another syndrome or like a disorder or something. And so I wanted to share like all the information at once. Like I wanted to say like, oh, Giselle has PRS, or like, or if it was just like isolated, which it was, she just had an isolated cleft palate, which means that they don't really, it was something that just happened. And so I was able to share that information. But as you said, like in your situation, it's very different, and it varies from situation to situation. You obviously have, it was genetic, right? Hereditary, like it was passed down. So those are conversations that you probably want to have early on, because man, your mother-in-law could probably provided you with some support in that as much as she could, right? With the information that she had. Obviously things have changed, right? From 26 years ago, but at least you share like an experience with someone like, that kind of understands where you're coming from. So yeah. So that's my 2 cents on that. I think that it varies from situation to situation, But as you said, like if you having to deal with like the feeding early on and just like the stress of just having a newborn and then having to filter a bunch of questions from people, you kind of want to get it out of the way first.
Yes, I posted about it on Facebook when I found out because, well, I wasn't going to post the twins on Facebook, but then I decided that I would as long as it was private for just my friends because I just don't know the world like that, and there's some crazy things going on. So when I first found out about it, I did tell my immediate family, and then I posted it on Facebook for the family that keeps up with us on Facebook. And so I also feel like that was easier because when he was born, I was sure there was a lot of people when I did post their pictures that would have questions about what was wrong with them. But since I had already posted about it, when I found out, they already knew, so wasn't a bunch of stuff that I had to answer and explain.
Yeah.
That I was trying to also learn myself, so.
Yes, that's such a valuable thing, I feel like, to kind of like protect yourself, right? Because it's a really stressful situation. It is stressful in the beginning. It's not, there's a lot of fear that comes with our situation, but also it's not impossible, and we're strong and we're able to like overcome these things. And so I don't want to like scare anyone, you know what I mean? But of course it's hard. Being a mom in general is just really difficult. So just think about that along with just having to, have a child that has a medical condition. So with that being said, what do you think is like the biggest lesson that you've learned along your journey?
The biggest lesson for me, it's not as bad as I thought it would be. It was hard. I think the hardest part really was like being there. I would be there for him in a heartbeat again, but it's just seeing my baby in pain. And then the hardest surgery for me was the cleft lip because when he was born, and then I got used to his big wide smile, and it was like the most beautiful smile ever. And then walking into the room and seeing him have a completely different smile, it hurt, and I miss his old smile a lot, but I'm really, really grateful that I got to fall in love with two different smiles.
Oh, I love that. Oh my God. Okay.
But also seeing how strong that Hendrix has been through it all, that's really, that hits hard because he's just a little baby, and it hurts to see him go through all this, but then like no matter what he's been through, he always smiles. Like even after both of his surgeries, just a few hours after, he was smiling, and I was just like, wow, he's really strong, and if he can be strong, then I can too, because we're going through this together. Like he's having to learn how, like when he gets his surgeries, he's having to learn, like he got used to having cleft lip and palate, and then he had to get used to not having it anymore. So like it's a learning process for him, but it's also a learning process for me, and I just felt like if he could be strong through it, then I can too.
Yes, I thought the same thing. I'm like, there's so many adjustments that Giselle has had to make, and it's like fascinating how like resilient she is. And I'm here. She's the one that's actually going through it, right? And I'm the one that's like freaking out. And she, of course, she's like,
that's how it is.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I think that that's like such a beautiful thing to be able to like to have like those memories of two smiles, and like it's such a unique experience that we share, and something that we like have grown to like appreciate, right? Like those memories and those moments that we have, while they weren't like the greatest things and the greatest times of our lives, we were able to like get through it and learn from it, and to just like grow from it. So I'm going to close out the episode here, but I did want to ask, are you planning on having more children?
Good question. I would like to try for a girl, but I'm also pretty scared because while there is a 1 in 12 or like a 50%, I don't remember, but there's a big possibility of having twins again, but there's also like a 50-50, they told us, of having another cleft lip affected baby. Which I could go through it again. That would be fine. It's just hard seeing your babies like that.
Yeah. I feel like because you've gone through it one time, now it's like you kind of just know what to do. So it would be like a lot easier. The figuring things out process would be so much easier. I think like you said, it's like the seeing your baby in pain. And that part of it never gets easier, you know? So yeah, but yeah, I just want to like wish you the best of luck with that. I think that mothers of twins are phenomenal and superheroes. So I do want to just say that, because I can't imagine, just like how we started at the beginning of the episode. My mom told me that it could be a possibility that I could have twins, but as I said, I am grateful that did not happen. Because I don't know how you make it day to day.
It was super scary because like when I was pregnant and I found out it was twins, I was like, I gotta get everything twin.
Aww.
And I had even gotten them a twin bassinet. A couple of my family members went half on it on Amazon, and then I got it here, and like when Hendrix was born, they were like, he can't lay flat, and I was like, well, there goes that. And he didn't even sleep in it, really.
Oh wow.
And then he didn't do good with the NAM either. We didn't get to do the NAM because it didn't work out.
Yeah.
At all.
I'm glad that you mentioned the NAM as well. I have no experience with that. And so we're actually going to have I believe they're a pediatric dentist that's going to be on the podcast as well, to just explain what that process is like and give parents like tips and tricks about that as well. I know that it works for some parents, and some babies it just doesn't work out. But I know that process too, based on what I've seen, is just really, really challenging, just trying to like have that work out. So we'll have someone on the show to like discuss that a little bit further. So, but anyway, yeah, Haley, I want to thank you for joining us today. As always, thank you for listening to Our Forever Smiles, Cleft Mom Diaries, and support. Be sure to subscribe and submit a review of the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. I hope that you've enjoyed this audio experience, and maybe you cried a little, laughed a little, but more importantly, I hope that you have felt a little piece of reassurance in the process and even joy. Talk to you next week.